everyone, and welcome to another episode of Renter Obsessed Live. I'm your host, Sydney. This is a not podcast where a bunch of multifamily marketers get together and talk about things that we want to talk about. So today we are diving very deep. We are getting very nerdy. We are getting very tactical on SEO, search engine optimization. I've brought in a SME, a subject matter expert, who comes highly recommended in the industry, Mike. Mike, I don't even know how to pronounce your last name, so I'm just going to let you take your introduction from here.
Cool. I appreciate you being my hype man. That's fantastic. I'm Mike Whaling. I'm the president of 30 Lines. We are a marketing technology studio. We have an agency team that does SEO and PPC and email marketing and all of the fun things that agencies do to help with digital marketing for apartment communities. And then we also have a software side of the house where our flagship product is RentPress. And we've developed the tool that other agencies use to build beautiful apartment websites and apartment marketing machines.
Awesome. So we brought him in to give us all free advice. So I appreciate that today. So just to kind of get this kicked off, things have changed a lot in the last couple of years. Everyone on this call already knew how important digital marketing and SEO is. Obviously, you guys are here. But when people stopped visiting communities in person in the way that they used to, our websites all of a sudden became so much more important. I had a conversation with Sarah, the director of marketing from Olympus, and we were like, your website is your virtual tour path. Your website is your tour. And the types of like video content, photo content, virtual tours, Matterport tours that I've been seeing out there, they're so gorgeous. People are doing such a good job. There's so much investment. And I actually used to work really closely with someone out of Chicago who had an SEO firm, not in multifamily, just like very hardcore, only focused on SEO. And he's like, you can have a pretty website. You could have a high converting website. You can have all the content in the world, but if nobody finds it, who cares? So today we're going to talk about things that we can do both on your website, but also off your website to drive that traffic, because you have a lead generating machine. I mean, once you invest your sweat equity, or maybe you bring someone on like a marketing agency to help you. Once you invest that time, you can have this ongoing leads flooding to your website at no additional marketing cost. So it's really like, it's a powerful investment on the front end. And I don't know about you guys, but maybe it's because I'm in marketing. I judge businesses pretty hard by their website. If their website's not cute, also, if you're a marketing agency and your website's not cute, then I'm like, what are you doing? What are you going to build for me? You know, so that's something that I think a lot of us our renters, our consumers they're smarter than ever. They're doing so much research. They're looking at tons of properties. And what I posted on LinkedIn this week that kind of inspired this topic was, we're not apartments.com, we're not Zillow, we can't buy Super Bowl ads. It's going to be really challenging for us to be found organically on Google because the market is so saturated and the keyword apartments is insanely hard to rank for, which of course it is. And if it wasn't, then why would I be giving them a bunch of money? So we're going to talk about the fact that today we're going to talk about the fact that you guys are all managing local businesses. You're managing retail local businesses. And one of the most powerful things that you can be visible on is Google Maps. Because if I'm looking for an apartment, I might be moving across the country and that would be different, but it's generally Google is going to serve me up at businesses that it feels is relevant to me. And what's relevant to me is local businesses nearby. And so if you can rank in the maps section, you might be competing with some of local ads, but you're not going to be competing with apartments.com there. You're not going to be competing with Zillow there. And you're in the center, the heart of page one when you're there. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to get there today. So let's kick it off. You posted something today. What did you comment on my post, Mike, about getting all your ducks in a row? But let's talk about ways that you can improve your website's SEO without touching your website. You want to get it started? And then everyone else can just interject?
Sure. So, well, I want to hear a little bit more about what questions people have, because where I'm going to go with this is probably not what people are expecting, but it's more a reality of what consumer behavior looks like today and how we can then align ourselves with that. I definitely think that there's lots of opportunities both on property websites and off. But I think we have to look at that first of like, what are people searching for? What are they asking? What are the questions that people are typing? SEO is simply, how do we be the best answer to those questions? And the questions change as the person's shopping moves through their process, right? As they're going through their shopping journey, their questions change. So how do we be the best answer to those initial first searches? Apartments in Denver, apartments in Seattle. Sometimes it's not even that. If I'm moving across the country, I'm not searching for apartments yet. I just want to know, what are the best neighborhoods to live in, right? So that is the question that Google's trying to answer. And Google's job is deliver the best answer so that they feel they trust Google and come back. Google has I just saw it, 93% market share of search engines. And so everybody's there, a little bit happening on Bing, right? But how do we be the best answer? And how do we understand what people are looking for as they move through that process? So if I'm searching for apartments in Seattle, something really broad, Google knows that person wants to see lots of options. So that's why the ILSs win. But there's also things that we can be doing and be thinking about of like, okay, if we know, hey, they want to see options, how do we create content that feeds into that? What are the things that we can do? And Google know, like, Sydney, to your point, Google Maps is the biggest ILS that nobody's paying for.
Yeah.
Yet.
Yes.
But they will be. But they own a massive amount of real estate when it comes to local. So we want to be playing into not only our website, but also how can we using Google Maps and all of the other local listings to really extend our web presence so that no matter where anybody's looking, we have the content, we have the message that we want them to see, and we have the content that delivers on that, getting them, to take that next step.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to steps that we can take right now, I posted a few that I know are just surefire, they work. Google doesn't want to just serve you what's relevant. They want to serve you what's relevant and has a good reputation. And so one of the top factors, and if you, wherever you're sitting, Google knows where you are, obviously. If you just type the word apartments or rentals or whatever you're looking for, and you go to that map function and you look at the options it's serving you, you're going to see that it's going to prioritize people that have a high volume of reviews and positive reviews. And one of the quick hacks that I learned also from working in SEO was it's looking for relevancy, right? So if you're trying to rank for certain terms, like you're trying to rank for apartments or studio apartments or pet-friendly apartments, those things, you can try to interject those words into your responses as well, because it's keeping track of not just what's on your website, but what's on all over your GMB. Does anyone have any examples of quick things that anyone listening to this podcast can do right now that would make an impact? Don't speak all at once. So another one that I know is really impactful is domain authority pass from website to website. And so one of the things that I'm assuming that we're going to talk about today is backlinks or inbound link structure, what have you. So when one website has a link to another website, Google sees that this website referring to you signals that you are qualified for whatever that topic is. And I don't know if it matters anymore, but the words that link, the what is that called? I forget. But anyway, like using those keywords. Anchor text. That's what I was going for. That's important. And that's something that worked really well for me. So I had a lease up in Portland and I was trying to rank for Southeast Portland apartments. And I built a passport program because I knew that I'm not going to get like, yeah, my ILS listings might link to me, but they're something called no follow links usually, which means they're not actually passing the SEO juice to your website because they're linking to so many people. And it doesn't make sense for their personal SEO strategy. So I really wanted local links, and there's something called domain authority. I think there's a couple different names. Basically, like how well your Google respects your website. And even if you're getting backlinks from other websites that don't have a super high domain authority, it actually makes a big difference if those websites are in your local area. So if Google sees a bunch of business websites in a small region linking to each other, that's going to send really strong signals that this is a really powerful local business. So what I did is I built a passport on my website, and I reached out to 20 local businesses to get involved, maybe more. And to participate in this, they had a special badge or a special phrase on their website that said, we're participating in the Meeting House Neighborhood Passport Program. And so that linked to my website. And then all of a sudden, without any of them knowing it, they were passing all of their SEO authority to my website. And it was hugely impactful. And there's a lot of different ways you can get links in, as far as like guest blogging with content. You can write articles for people. I've worked with renters who had really cute apartments, and we went through apartment therapy and submitted their apartment. They don't like you to do that though. They don't want to link to your website because it costs so much money, but they did it. And they're one of the most powerful domains for the word apartments as well. So
I love that passport idea. There's a couple of things when it comes to backlinks. One, I think that the more that we can be thinking about SEO needs to be included in our community outreach playbook, along with our own social media. We have inventory, we have a captive audience, we have a lot of tools at our disposal to get those businesses in front of our residents, right? So if we're thinking about what is the traditional community outreach playbook look like, it needs to include SEO and social media in there, and looking at how do we create those updates, how do we create the content on our website. The passport program is brilliant. So, and all that does is make it easier for those businesses to link back to us, right? Even if we can't do that, you probably still have sister properties that are all within the same region. And you can look for opportunities to cross-link between those separate properties. Hey, here are other properties in the area you might want to take a look at. Link them up, and then cross-link between all of those sister properties. There's lots of things there that you can do. I think, Sydney, you gave an example of just blogging on your corporate website, and then using that as an opportunity to build links into the individual property sites. The best way to think about it is, links are Google's way of judging kind of popularity, right? It's like, do other people trust this site enough to link to it? So that's what it's looking for, is if you are building up those links, then Google knows, okay, other people like this, we can trust it too, and we're more likely to rank it higher.
If you guys are curious about your standings with your SEO, I would do a free trial of an SEO software. I mean, I've used Ahrefs, that's a great one. Moz, SEMrush. Gina's on this call right now. Gina, she is our in-house digital marketing queen. She is awesome on all of those fronts. She has access to all of those. So if anyone needs a recommendation, she is your girl. And I'm sure, Mike, you have lots of recommendations as well.
Yes, I'll be happy. Like, if you guys have top competitors, I can take a look and send you a report and like top keywords that they rank for. And I can also give you my recommendation, which ones realistically you can bid on. Because sometimes if their domain authority is so much higher, it's not worth going. So please send me a message and I'll be happy to send you a report.
And if anyone's new here, which there's a lot of you, we have a Slack community as well that's called Renter Obsessed. I'll send you guys all invites to it after this call, but that's a really good way, besides LinkedIn, of course, to send a quick Slack to Gina, ask her your questions, reach out to each other. If anyone on this call has something to say that you're like, I got to know more, you can connect with them on that Slack community as well. And obviously there's shared channels that we can just leave ideas and ask questions of the group. But yeah, so we're talking about domain authority, right? You know, you have these competitors, you can see what words they're ranking for. One of the things when you're in these tools as well is looking at what keywords make the most sense for your business. And sometimes, yeah, you can rank for Bernice Mountain Dog friendly apartment in Tahoe, but how many people are searching for that, you know? So looking for things that are very, that have high search volume, but are relatively easy to rank for, pulling some of that low hanging fruit and figuring out ways to infuse that into your website. So, having a clear keyword strategy. Actually, when I was trying to rank on maps, and I was working with someone, he recommended that I change the name of my apartment community on Google. He's like, change it to Meeting House, Southeast Portland Apartments. It really helped, along with other things we were doing.
Have you seen the meme going around about the dentist, where the business name is Dentist Near Me? That's
brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's a company here in Portland where I live called Anchor Northwest. And honestly, if you go to their website, you wouldn't even be able to tell that it was Anchor Northwest. It's called like Portland Apartment Search or something. It's very much like he's running his website like it's an ILS. And that's one of the things that you brought up too, Mike, is we have the power of our corporate websites. And if we think about like, what is the goal of our corporate website? What is the purpose of it? Is it for recruiting? Maybe. Is it for investors to see that they're in good hands, or for owners, if you're fee managers, to see what your services are? Your corporate website has the potential to be its own mini ILS ecosystem.
And those pages are going to rank. Go back to what we talked about, right? If Google knows, hey, this person wants to see options, that single property website's probably not going to rank, because that's, you're not showing people options. But if I can put a page up that says 2-bedroom apartments under $2,400 available now, and I can have 10 properties that fit onto that page, now all of a sudden I have options, I can get super targeted, and I have a much better chance of ranking because I'm a better answer for the question.
Yeah. And it's a great user experience as well. You're filtering through so many different properties. There's so many options, and to be able to just kind of toggle through what you want and see what the availability is. But also, obviously the more influx of content you have, the more consistent you are with creating content, always adding value. That's something that can really, really move the needle for you as well. To be frank, like, I'm guessing none of you guys are blogging for your individual apartments. That's insane. The amount of stuff that we have to do as marketers is it's crazy. Like I'm not in property management anymore. I'm on the vendor side. I work at Knock. We're marketing a single product. Well, we have 2 products now, and we're rolling out more, but we have all these different specialties. I'm customer, Jania is digital. We have someone that's just blogging and content, so it's just creative. And we just don't have that luxury in multifamily. We have amazing partners that we can lean on, but that's not always realistic. But if you're thinking about it from a corporate brand perspective, cranking out 1 blog every couple of weeks on your corporate website that links and lists all your properties, that actually is something that's feasible.
Well, let's talk about it from a slightly different angle. If you're paying for a service that is posting about crockpot recipes, that is doing 0 for your website. It is not helping you at all. So what are the things that you can be doing to create content? It's very difficult to take a typical individual apartment website that's maybe 5 or 10 pages and get it to rank for unbranded keywords. Really, we want to, Cindy, you mentioned, like, do some homework. What are the things that people are searching for? I like to look at chatbot transcripts. I like to go into the CRM and look at when somebody filled out the guest card, what did they talk about? what's the language that they're using, the things that they're asking for. If you listen to calls, if you talk to your team and get, hey, this is the language that our customers are using, then look at, are they actually searching for that? Now, what are you doing to actually create content that matches what those people are searching for in their own language? Because that's what's going to help you, is not necessarily tweaking keywords or adding a blog about recipes. It's adding really targeted, very, useful content that says, I saw the renter preferences study came out last week. And one of the things that they mentioned is, if you look, hyper local trends, out in Hawaii, everybody wants a gear wall. People want a gear wall for their surfboard and their bike and everything else, right? So build that page that talks about apartments with gear walls, and put the picture, describe it, write 1,000 words about those apartments and the community itself, and you're going to start ranking for that term ahead of the ILSs. But those are the kinds of things that we need to be thinking about in terms of, if we're blogging or if we're creating content, let's make it useful and let's make it align with what people are actually searching for.
Absolutely. And there are easy ways to write a piece of content that isn't having to spend 2 hours researching a gear wall. Like, you can say top 3 apartments with like a gear wall. Like, the listicles are so easy to do.
Yep.
And you just have all your own apartments on that list right there. And also, like, when your guest spot, if you're writing content and you're trying to get inbound links and it doesn't get picked up by anyone, that goes right onto your own blog as well.
I have a question here to Mike. What's the best and the smartest structure that you can build in your blog post to empower SEO? Like pillar and cluster topics, like, is it still the best thing that we can do, or is anything new and trendy emerging from 2021 that we can apply?
Well, Google's getting really big into these topics because they're losing cookies, right? So if you follow where cookies are going, and Google tried this thing called Flock that failed, Flock flopped. So now they're turning on this thing called topics to really start to identify, they want better ways to track what we're interested in, so that they can feed us more content that we're more likely to click on. So we keep coming back to Google. I think it's not necessarily what's changing and how we need to structure websites. Go back to where Sydney started the whole conversation. I think the biggest thing that Google's looking at today is user experience. And what does that mean for mobile? What does that mean for page load times? What does that mean for, are there a bunch of pop-ups and things that get in the way that prevent you from actually getting to the content that you want to see? Pop-ups still work. They're not illegal. Google won't penalize you too much for it. If you have one pop-up that promotes your special, that's fine. But they're really focused on user experience. And if you look at one of the big things that they're focused on is called core web vitals. I don't expect anybody here to really know that, other than be able to ask your developer about, hey, what are some things that we can do to improve that? Can we smush our images and make the images, not as heavy on the page? Are there other things that we can do to make the page load faster and the experience better? If you're doing that, and you are creating content that matches what people are looking for, you'll be fine. You'll win more than your share of traffic if you're doing those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear from the crowd. Are there any, okay, I would like to share something with everyone here. I am so guilty of sitting in calls, sitting in conversations and nodding and smiling and having no idea, like, there's a word, there's jargon, there's something that we're talking about. You're like, I don't want to ask because I feel like I should know, but I just don't. I'm always that person. So I want to put this out, totally safe space. If there's anything that we talked about, you're like, what are they talking about? Please, just speak up and say it. Like, let's clarify everything. I think up until a couple years ago, SEO scared me. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I was like, am I supposed to like name my pictures the words I want to rank for? I named them apartment something, and I had no idea. There's so many missing pieces that were just such a simple fix that I can go in and do myself that I just didn't know. And so I think a lot of times we have these conversations, or we go to conferences, and it's just so high level of what you should do and all this work and this content that you need to create, when there's actually little tricks and tips that can make an impact right now. So does anyone have any questions about anything we've talked about? Yes, Sarah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, guys, as the resident non-marketer on this call, what's ILS?
ILS is Internet Listing Service. So that's the nickname we give for apartments.com, Zillow, Apartment List, RentPath, those folks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. And I guess like from a recruiting perspective, as my cat like assaults me this whole call, I'm really sorry, guys. Like she's been chill this whole time, as the regulars have seen. Well, I guess from like a recruiting standpoint, Mike, I don't get to touch a lot of the marketing side of things. And I know that just as people looking for apartments, like that's an oversaturated space. Like even looking for jobs, like there's a lot of jobs that are open right now. I mean, from a recruiting standpoint, I don't know if this is anything you have experience touching, but do you have any, advice like for anybody that's looking to kind of optimize when it comes to how do you become that person or that company that people search for, or like just making it easier to stand out when there's so many maintenance openings, when there's so many property staff openings? Like, just curious if you have experience touching that.
That's a really good question.
We do actually. We have a couple of clients where we actually help them with their corporate, not only their corporate website, but their corporate like culture blogs, where they really talk about what makes them stand out. And I think that's the first part, is share that experience, share that brand, share that culture that you're trying to build of why should you work here in the first place? Because just like you asked about ILSs, when you look at the recruiting side, it's more the Indeeds and the ZipRecruiters that they dominate the first page of results for a lot of this stuff, right? But if you can start to, I think the thing that we see a lot with the recruiting side is the content that we share is more around, hey, we're going to be at this job fair, come see us. And you're not really, go back to what Sydney was talking about in terms of understanding what people are searching for. So if we know that people are searching for apartment jobs in Atlanta, and we see volume around that, what are you doing to match that and be the answer to that question? Hey, if you're looking for apartment jobs in Atlanta, here's what we have to offer. Here are our job listings. Here's why you want to consider our company. Here's where you can come talk to us. Here's where you can talk to a few people that can provide testimonials about why they love working here. Bring in that social proof that we want people to see. Here's our Glassdoor, all of the things, but you're really targeting it towards that apartment jobs in Dallas, and that you're answering that question that we know that people are looking for.
Yeah,
That's
awesome.
Opportunity. I feel like just in hearing you say that too, Mike, I feel like there's a lot of opportunity to capitalize on people that may not know that that may not be looking for apartment jobs, for maintenance, for example. If anyone hasn't had a chance to listen to them, the last couple of conversations we've had were a lot about employee recruiting, retention, advocating for yourself as an employee. There's a lot of things that are really hot right now, like benefits that people want, ways that people want to be treated in the workplace. And if you can do a little query research or like use those tools, like reach out to Gina and talk to her about those tools. Are people looking for jobs that are remote? Are people looking for jobs that are unlimited PTO or training opportunities? There's so many words that you can think about ranking for, and then you can write an article saying how to advocate for yourself as an employee, or here's the story of a construction manager that shifted to maintenance, and this is a lifestyle change. And then you drop those like Or for example, leasing agents. Some of the best leasing agents come from the food service industry. Tell stories, talk about transitioning careers from one industry to another. And maybe you can even rank for like barista jobs in Atlanta. And then they can see, oh, actually, you can have this other job that's similar, pays a bit more, has these benefits. And so obviously you don't want to get it too muddy. You don't want to be the wrong place and people bounce because they're actually looking for one thing. But thinking about like apartments, we're not just trying to rank for apartments, we're trying to rank for apartment amenities too sometimes. And so if you think about job amenities, what job amenities can you advertise and start ranking for?
That makes sense.
SEO doesn't have to live on an island either, right? Like if you can go create content for it, but you want to supercharge it, look for ways that you can tie it in with PPC too, right? There are certain things where you might not rank for the term, but you want to be there. Well, we already have all this content that we just described. You've created this. Now you can go after some other terms and talk about, can you advertise on restaurant jobs? Can you advertise on barista jobs? Can you advertise on hotel jobs or hospitality jobs? Tired of the hotel life? Have you ever considered a career in apartments? Here's our page.
For sure. And I think too, like y'all talking about like a clear keyword strategy. So what that says to me, someone not on the marketing side, is like, I know that it's important when you're writing a job description to have keywords that are going to be searchable terms, things that are going to pop when people are looking for opportunities. And usually those are going to be more related to the job title. But then whenever you have the opportunity in an applicant tracking system to be able to input your own keywords into something so that it targets leasing, it targets maintenance and things like that. I think most of the topic today, from my limited understanding, like talks about integrating it like with Google and stuff. And I guess I just making sure, like, as far as having a clear keyword strategy, doing everything that a recruiter can do whenever my main tool is an applicant tracking system. But what are the questions I could be asking marketing and my marketing team, who's very helpful, very involved? Like, how can we help to boost the traffic that comes to us for the jobs, not just the apartments?
Yeah. Absolutely. And like Mike was saying, leverage your PPC as well. If you have recruiting budget, if you have a bucket of recruiting budget, see if you can allocate some of that and build a really nice recruiting landing page. So when they're clicking on it, they're not just landing on, your corporate website homepage. They're directed to the content that they exactly want. Because a big measurement too with Google is your bounce rate. They want to make sure that they're delivering relevant results to their customers. And a big indicator for non-relevancy is a high bounce rate. So when they come to your website, they're there, they peace out. And so having a low bounce rate is something that's important. And you get that by delivering relevant content for the query that you were ranking for. We have a question in the chat from Diane. Sorry, it's been here for a while. I have a Google Knowledge panel not appearing. 50 other of our properties appear, except for one property. How do we get this to appear? Any tips and tricks?
Do you have it? Is it claimed and it's not showing up?
It is claimed. Yes.
It is claimed.
It's claimed, yes. It's claimed. And we've posted posts through Google. We've given it activities. We've reviewed replied to any Google reviews. So
it's out there. It's just not showing up when somebody searches for the property name.
Yeah, all of our other properties show up except for this one, and we've tried getting it. I've even reported it to Google, and it's still not appearing.
Listen, if you want to connect offline, I'd be happy to look at it, but my guess is it might be like a more general property name, and Google's not sure whether they should show a knowledge panel for one location or not.
Okay.
But it sounds like it's out there. People are finding it on maps. They're seeing your posts. And they're leaving you reviews. So all of those things are positive. If you know that it's showing up, like do a neighborhood search and see. Cindy was talking about that local pack of like the top 3. If you're showing up there, you're in good shape. It's there's nothing wrong with your profile. It's probably more related to the types of searches that Google's not sure whether they should associate a panel with it or not.
Okay.
No, it's also sometimes tough for us as marketers, especially if like you have a big portfolio that's all across the country. If you're sitting in one state and you're working on your local business in a different area, you're not going to be served the same results people that are sitting in, Nashville looking for apartments, which are leaving you those reviews and stuff, as you might be sitting in Idaho.
Yeah, I wondered if it was because it was location based.
Yeah.
But we've had people in that area do a search also, and it still wasn't appearing. So
I wonder changing. Oh, go for it, Sheena.
Quick tip I wanted to share that I always use. So if you ever want to have inspiration of which keywords to go after or topics to write, it's useful to do a research in your competitors, but look at their paid ads. Look at, there is a tool called SpyFu or SEMrush. I use both of them. So what I like to do is like, take a look at the keywords they historically been paying for. Because if they're paying for these keywords, it means that they bring them high quality traffic. So you want to go and create a really powerful organic content. So you will get these people for free without paying for them.
Just paying in sweat equity of creating that content.
Well, and my guess is they're probably not creating this content. They're probably not creating the landing pages. So if you beat them on the better landing page, that's the better answer to the question, you're going to win.
Yeah. I always think about what we do as marketers and how that translates and what that looks like for different people in the company. When I first started in multifamily, I was a leasing agent who then transitioned straight from leasing into a marketing specialist role because I found early on that I was very interested in marketing. And there's not a lot you can do as a leasing agent from a marketing perspective. I couldn't touch the website. I wasn't hiring PPC. I wasn't doing a lot of that stuff. So, and I know on-site teams are really busy and they have a lot on their plate to do that's like needs to be done. But we've talked a lot about in these episodes about career development and how that can positively impact employee retention and also position your brand as a brand that does develop careers within the industry. And there's a lot of opportunities from an SEO perspective to get your on-site teams excited and feel empowered to be a part of your marketing team. And that could be as simple as nobody knows this. I'm a marketer. I live in a different area than this property. You know the neighborhood, you know your competitors, you know your property and your customers. What do you think about writing, 5 best coffee shops or in this neighborhood that I'm trying to rank for, or just like very assistive content that they would know that they would talk about on their tour. Take that tour content, that conversation, and build blogs about it, and use that to fuel your SEO. Use that new content versus relying on yourself to write. It's not for everyone. You might find like one superstar out there that wants to do it, but for the person that does do it, if you can teach them about SEO and help them understand the impact of what they're doing, you're really setting them up with an incredible skill that they can take and build a career out of in this industry. They can go work for Mike.
I think that's awesome.
Leasing agents always want more at bats, right? Like, hey, give me more leads. And yeah. I think what we end up translating that to too often in marketing is, well, we need to go buy more traffic, whether it's PPC or ILSs, but there are other ways that we can get those people in the door, and it's going to be more qualified if we're creating that content that reels in the people that we actually want to be talking to.
Yeah.
To like selling based on like the experience, like everything is about storytelling, right? Like you can get people excited if you know the area and you ask your potential residents the questions like, what are you looking for in a home? Like, do you want a park? We have parks near here. Do you need to be close to, I was going to say, I don't have kids, so I sound very dumb right now. You need to be close to schools. You need to be close to hospitals, but like whatever is of interest to them. I mean, if they're outdoorsy people, do you need to be close to like hiking trails? I mean, whatever's in the area. And I live in Houston. Like, don't take that for whatever it's worth. Like, I'm not trying to be like all of our apartments have these amenities, but really and truly, I'm just saying that it's supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be like Sydney's saying, like, it sounds like it could be this one thing a leasing person could do, but when people are coming into the office, you're supposed to be doing that anyway. But I think that's a great thing to be able to, whenever you're advertising, and I'm immediately going to be going to my teams after this to be like, hey, what's around you? What's the reason people want to work here, let alone live here? So I love that, Sydney. Thank you for saying that, because that got me excited. Because I think that in my last job, like I worked in single family home building before property management. And so most of that is like, you're selling a home. They're like giving their money to like their first home. And so you have to set the stage and get them excited. And that belief is something you still have to believe, even if they're only renting it. Like, and so that just got me excited. And that was me waxing poetic before I realized very quickly that I was not a parent who could talk about what's needed for their families around them.
I mean, it reminds me of what Courtney said in our Renter Obsessed episodes, the past is you're the biggest chunk of their paycheck.
Yes.
This is a serious purchase. And if anyone here, and I know everyone here knows because this is a room full of marketers, but these people are doing some major research. And so one of my strategies in marketing at Knock, which is very different. Whoa, was it different to go from marketing to renters to marketing to marketers? Talk about renters being smart. No one's smarter than marketers. Shh, don't tell the other people in the industry. But you want to, everything that you do is giving. Just give them things to give my peers things to make their job easier. That's what Renter Obsessed is. Renter Obsessed is a community so we can learn from each other and make connections, which will help us in our career, help us solve our problems. Just give them assistive content like like where to live if you want to be within a mile of work. Apartment List does such a good job, and that quiz in the beginning as a renter, like identifying exactly what you want. And if you're there along the way as that assistive presence, and this might not necessarily be relevant for an individual property, but this might be relevant for your corporate brand. If I, as a renter, go to you frequently as a source of truth, as a source of knowledge, maybe you're based out of Houston and you are the authority on everything Houston, I'm going to keep coming back to your website. I'm going to tell my friends because you have the best lists or you have the best content that helps me understand my neighborhood. That's really powerful. It feels like the whole flywheel thing we were talking about in the very early days of Renter Obsessed, like build the momentum in your marketing stack so you don't get to a point where you're reactive, like, oh my gosh, I need leads. I'm going to pay for this right now. And like right now, I was just talking to one of my coworkers and we're like, what are we going to do? Everybody's full. Like everybody's like, we got to change our value props. They're not looking to do occupancy. Everyone's full. So this is the time where we can be really offensive about our marketing. This is the time where we're not like, oh crap, I need more leads for my sales team to convert. We can get really good at what we're doing and build our portfolio of content and be the assistive presence. Yeah.
I want to see the company that gets, you use the word offensive. And I understand it's not offensive. It's
offense, not defense.
Right. Yeah. I gotcha. I hear you.
That's what I mean.
Being more aggressive.
Yeah.
I think that there's so many ways that we can be a little more aggressive in our marketing with content. I would love to see that student housing property that does the ultimate guide to renting at Purdue. And it talks about their competitors, and it talks like you see a lot. Sydney, you might be doing this with your software where you're doing like battle cards, right? You're doing comparisons of green check marks for us, red X's for them. We don't lean into that in this industry. What are the things where if I know that there's a comp coming and there's a brand new lease up that I'm competing against, but I win on 7 out of the 10 things that a lot of our renters are looking for, build that page, build that spreadsheet. put the green checks and the red marks, the red X's out there and say like, hey, if you're looking at this place, here's why you want to consider Meeting House instead. That is a 100% a real opportunity that will work, and we sleep on it in multifamily.
Yeah, there's a lot of lessons that I'm learning switching from marketing to renters to marketing to marketers that I think some of them absolutely translate. And one of the ones I've been thinking about a lot lately is the difference between capturing demand and creating demand. There's a very small portion of the population in multifamily looking to buy a CRM right now, honestly. So once we capture them, then the rest of my job is to educate the market on why it's meaningful and how it can transform your business and why you should work with us. And in multifamily, it's a little bit different. You have a much larger pie of people that are looking to rent right now, because you might only be there for a year. Everybody needs a place to live. Not everybody markets in multifamily. But if you take those people that are looking for a rental, you're in the right spot, right place, right time, great. You got those, you captured those. What can you do as we're full, leads are on a problem, to create demand so you have a pipeline ready to go that's committed to you and committed to your brand in the meantime? So when you do need occupancy, which we inevitably will all need, because this is not the market ebbs and flows. What if you had this entire audience of people? They're like, okay, well, yeah. When I do move, of course, I only live at Hills Properties. Like I'm devoted to Hills Properties. And Katie was talking about that being the case with her influencer marketing strategies. But what if we built brand loyal consumers in the rental space? Because I don't feel like there's a lot of that. It's very much like, it's in front of me. First one that answered the phone call. What if it wasn't speed to lead? What if it was actual customer devotion?
Oh man, I hope you have a whole other episode that get dedicated to this. I really do, because like here's where I'm at, and what I'm seeing is there's a lot of talk about CLO right now, but CLO is really more about centralized leasing offices. Mm-hmm. But a lot of it is really more focused on efficiency and, hey, we're just short on labor, so we have to have one person handle 4 properties instead of 1, right? But if you look at how do we start to roll that up the funnel for our customers, now all of a sudden, like, you're not really building brand connection, brand association for one property. If every Starbucks had a different name on the door, you wouldn't know what to order when you walked in. But because they all say Starbucks on the door, you already know what your order is, whether you order here or in Tokyo. Doesn't matter. So how do we start to build those associations across properties and across neighborhoods and across portfolios by meaning something? And it doesn't have to be much. Like what do I get when I walk in the door at a DoubleTree hotel? Everybody knows, like, I'm going to get a warm chocolate chip cookie, right? Kimpton Hotels is a great example for our industry, because every one of their brands, every one of their assets is named differently and takes on characteristics of the neighborhood that it's in. But you also know when you walk into a Kimpton, because they're pet friendly, they have they're more modern design, they have the manager's happy hour every night. Like, there are things that set them apart, and they are very, very clear and intentional about how they communicate that everywhere. That is where we now start to get into, like, hey, doesn't matter where I'm at in life or what I'm looking for. I know that I need to check out Hills, because Hills has properties all over town, and I'm sure that they have something closer to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And the centralized leasing is a great aspect to bring up. And we have a centralized leasing suite that we are talking about all the time. And that's the hot topic in this industry right now, as you can tell by our last few episodes, is this challenge with the employment market. And that's not our industry, that's the entire country. And so the centralized leasing model solves for that in such a meaningful way. It allows you to operate no matter what. Whether you have one person in one space handling a ton of properties, or you just need someone to sub for the day. It solves for that, but you're absolutely right, Mike. There is an opportunity to transform yourself from being like a storefront retail person. Hi, welcome to our building, to my name's Sydney. I'm going to be your relocation specialist. Let me interview you and understand exactly what you're looking for. And then based on that information, I'm going to present you with several options that are within your price range. And maybe this one's a little bit more luxury, and you can see if this would make sense for you. And you can really act as this, like in a consultant role versus a, hey, let's go on a tour. Like I'm a consultant more than a salesperson. And then you build this reputation in the market. And I think it's really empowering too. I mean, I don't know about everyone else, but most of us that I've talked to, we're here because what we do is meaningful, because we're not selling coffee. We're not even selling a single night. We're selling the most important thing, and that is your home. So the stakes are so high. So I feel like you should get better service buying your home than you could buying a car, and they're like, let me talk to you about all the options. So thinking about it that way.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh my gosh, killed it, nailed it. Need to make that the headline of this episode, post it with that, because that is exactly right. And I think it's so awesome that we're having the conversation, Sydney, because I think that while we're focusing on SEO, and Mike's really, I've written a lot of stuff down from what Mike was talking about. I think that at the end of the day, it's about the experience that people are getting. And it's about what are you actually doing on the site level to make sure people are excited about the opportunity to live there. And a lot of the stuff that Mike's talking about, make yourself appealing, make yourself the answer to the question. Well, that's the same thing on the human side of it, that everybody in the office needs to be focused on answering. Like, my hair's on fire right now. Sorry. Like, that's awesome. I love it.
My favorite thing to do is come up with solutions that solve for other people's problems and my own at the same time. Because then as a marketer, you can go to your HR person and be like, this is our project. We want to work on this. How can we support each other? Who can we bring in? Which on-site teams want to learn about marketing and want to learn about SEO? We'll get them to write. We'll get them to do this. We'll get residents. You can talk, your residents can create content for you. What if you did competition? Whoever submits a blog post gets $50 off their rent, or gets entered into a raffle to win this. I mean, we did that with social content. We could do that with blog content too. Yeah. Do you have any, we're kind of getting to wrap up. Do you have our special guest, Mike, do you have any final thoughts or things that you definitely want this group to know?
Well, I mean, I have a question for the group. I don't know if we have time for it, but I would love to better understand, like, I know that SEO is difficult to explain. It's difficult to understand, and it's also difficult to show the impact that it's making. Especially when you look at, if not all CRMs are knock, right? But if you look at how we've traditionally reported on where leads are coming from, you don't necessarily see a lot of leads coming from SEO. They come from property website. And so what I'm curious to know is there anything that, as a vendor, what are the things that we can be doing to better arm marketers with, hey, this is why we're making this investment. Here's why we know that this needs to be part of our playbook. And here's how we're going to show that this investment is working for us.
I mean, we can always use benchmarks, right? I know it's hard to benchmark SEO, but if you say certain percentage of your organic search, if your organic search moves the needle by X percentage, you can expect to see whatever it is in a decrease in your paid strategy. Just kind of it's just some kind of benchmark for you to be able to set goals and help communicate to ownership that it needs to be invested in.
That's awesome. That's great. I know that reduce the spend on the ILSs and reduce the spend on PPC is always a big one for sure.
Yeah. Cost savings as well is important. Another thing we could look at too is, I mean, most things on the internet are trackable. So I recommend, if you're not already using Google Search Console, to set your websites up with Google Search Console. Obviously website, like when I was a not customer, I did not want to see any of my sources be website. That means I didn't do tracking somewhere, or something was cached, or I don't know, but they were almost never website because they were attributed to something. And the way you do that obviously is like, make sure you're set up with tracking codes. So you have your UTM codes if you're not using a CRM, and see, go into your Google Analytics, go into your Google Search Console. If you're showing up for branded search, like if you're Country Oaks Apartments and you saw that someone looked for the term Country Oaks Apartments, clicked you, they probably heard about you from a friend. They maybe saw your sign, they heard about you somewhere else and they remembered. But if you see that they came to your website from a search query, like apartments in Lawndale, then you can see very clearly that that was the marketing source. It was organic search. And so I think that's very measurable. Also your Google My Business page. Like if we're talking about ranking on maps, your Google My Business page, they don't love it, but having that phone number be a tracking number, having that link be a tracking link, having the email, I don't remember if there's email on there, make that a tracking email. And then you can very clearly attribute your GMB page in your CRM or in whatever you're using to track your marketing.
Here's a little fun little tip too. And then I'll answer your question, Sydney, we can get out of here. But Google is really trying hard to get people the answer that they're looking for as quickly as possible. And so one of the things that you're going to see if you follow SEO trends, you're going to hear more and more about something called zero-click searches, which means Google gave the person the answer without sending them to your website or without even sending them to your Google business profile. But there's some things that you can do to, like, take your tracking phone number and drop it in the meta description on your website. Put it on your homepage, put it on your floor plans, put it on your contact. Look for ways to give the answer to people. If they're searching for, hey, I want to take a tour, and they want to see your hours, make sure that that's in your GBP, I guess is what it's called now. But look for what can you do to drop little nuggets of, all they're trying to do is get that answer to the question, give it to them in the title, give it to them in the meta description, give it to them wherever you can, so that they don't even have to get to your website to get the answer, but you can still see it. Hey, they called from this person found us on Google search. They called the number, and you might not even see that that's a click into your website, but they got their answer and you got the lead.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much. Yeah, to wrap us up.
Well, I was just going to say, so listen, there are so many little tips and tricks like that of, like, once you really get into it, there's lots of things that you can do that are kind of like that last 5 to 10% of really tweaking SEO. But the most important stuff is the thing that we talked about way at the beginning, which is just understanding what are people looking for and how does that change as they're going through their search, and focusing on how can I be the best answer to that question, and looking at across all these channels that we've talked about, is the best answer going to come from our corporate website? Is it going to come from our recruiting blog? Is it going to come from our Google Business and Google Maps? Is it going to come from our website? So use all of those tools, in the right way at your disposal, because you're just trying to build the web presence that gets your message in front of the customer and gets them to your door or to your virtual tour or whatever we want people to see. But understand, hey, how can I be the best answer? Where does that best answer go, so that Google knows this is what I need to serve to that customer and get them talking to me. That's really the easiest thing when it comes to SEO. Don't overcomplicate it. Just look at what are people looking for in their own language, and how can I be the best answer to that question?
I think that is the most clear stated way to wrap up all of the minutia and details that we talked about. That's absolutely right. That's the theme. That's the goal. And if that's your North Star, then you can determine if all these actions that you're taking are worth your time. What did you say to me, Gina, yesterday about how long does it take? How much, what were you talking about? How you measure what you should be working on?
Oh, yes, I have a criteria for myself because I always get carried away by all the ideas. So I evaluate every idea by how long will it take, how much will it cost, and what will be the impact from 1 to 10. And then I'll take an average and I'll decide what is the first idea I have to move on with.
I love that. I really appreciate you all being here today. This was an awesome conversation. We had so many new faces. If you enjoyed this, please help us out and spread the word. We are still growing. We're still a very new community. And like I said, it's not just a live Zoom call. It is a podcast. So if you want to share this with any of your colleagues or friends, go check it out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. And if you could like it and review it in talking about search, it helps people find our podcast too. If you tell us what you think and give us some feedback there. And like I said, you are all welcome to join us in the Slack community, and you can reach out to each other, make friends, pick our brains, ask questions in the channels, and we will see you all in a couple weeks. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you so much. And follow Knock on TikTok. I'm doing weird things there. Maybe you shouldn't follow me on TikTok.
No, it's so good, Sydney. It's so good. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, they're not, I'm running the social media for Knock and no one's measuring it yet. So I'm just like, no one's paying
Like,
attention.
laugh out
Having
loud.
a great time.
I'm having a really good time. Yeah. I was like Sunday afternoon, I had a cider. I was like, I'm going to make a dozen TikToks today. But yes, please
good.
join me there. Please stitch them and tell me, or post your own and tag us, because right now the vibe is just like funny things that you only get it if you get it and you're in multifamily. So that's where we're at right now.
Please keep it up.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome new faces. Thank you for the OG Renter Obsessed crew for always standing by our side and adding so much value to these conversations. And we'll see you soon. And thank you, special guest Mike from 30 Lines.
Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it.